Єлизавета, гейм-дизайнер в Bigpoint. Передаю тобі слово і пірнаємо в цю цікаву тему разом. Дякую.
Thank you so much, Alexandra, for this amazing introduction. Good morning, everyone, once again. And already, as you know, we will talk about rules today. And firstly, yes, Alexandra did an amazing introduction about me, but let me add slightly few details, right? Yes, I'm a game designer at Bigpoint in Hamburg, and my main project on which I'm working currently is Sea Fight. It's a pirate game, and you know, we are all pirates there, creating and supporting this game almost for 20 years. This game is successful on the market. And also I had an honor to work on the unannounced project so far. So my insights that I want to share with you today may be useful not only for the live game support, but also for the totally new games creation. Also, to support the Ukraine development, I'm helping with a game called Delusion Out of Space, if you know already. If not, please add to wish list on Steam. And soon, in half a year, we will have the open demo available. So stay tuned there. As a background, I completed the master degree as applied mathematician in Kyiv Mohila Academy, and to represent women in games in Ukraine, I'm also a part of the amazing community called Women in Games, right? And totally I have 7 years of experience both in game dev and education sectors. So again, as I mentioned, insights that I want to share with you today may be taken from the several positions and the places where I worked. So I hope that the stuff which we will cover today will be useful for you. As I mentioned, I will do my best to answer these questions, but I will try to, you have my promise here. So we will start with what actually are rules in the context of the games. And I'm making here, some differentiation between the rules and the game mechanics, and you will get the difference what I'm talking about. Then we will cover what frameworks can you use to define your game's rule set. Of course, as a game designer, how you can evaluate whatever your rule set is sufficient, or you need to improve something. And as cherry on the top, we will talk about how do different teams the rule set that you defined from their own perspective. Of course, I cannot dive to the what is the rule and what we are doing with it. I cannot go just to giving us simple definition here. So we will do some introduction from the, before we dive into the rules. We will talk about the game as itself, as a playable model. What I mean by that? You all know from the school years the definition of the system, right? We have this set of the interconnected elements which have a shared purpose, right? And the game, as a model, will simulate this imaginary system that you want to share with the world, right? With the defined rules and the objectives. And when players are interacting with these rules and objectives, they are making the decisions. And when they're making the decisions, they will get their consequences, right? And these interactions actually mirrors the decision-making process in the real-world scenarios. But it's not just the real-world scenarios, right? We need to do some transition between the real world and the game itself. For that, you can use so-called the magic circle, right? We will enter now the world of play, and we very close to the definition of the rule, finally, right? Very simple example. If we forget now that everyone knows about game of chess, if you look at the, on this icon, you will think that, okay, it's probably the head of the horse or a wooden horse, right? But when someone reaches you and telling that, hey, let's play chess. And someone explains you the rules how to play the chess, right? And you agreed to play with the chess following some rules, right? So you have, first of all, separate reality. So you're transitioning from understanding that this is a wooden horse and this is not a horse anymore, it's a knight, right, in chess. Okay, now it's called a knight. Okay, how I can play with the knight? I know that it's playing piece and I can move the knight following the rules of the chess, right? And all of this is inside the magic circle. It's all inside the game that you are playing right now. So you voluntarily participating in the game and you agree to play following the rules, as I already said. And you and your partner who's playing with you have a shared understanding of the game as its system, right? So inside of this magic circle, you have your game. And this circle you can call the rules. And outside of this circle will be the real world, a boring world, right? Okay. A little disclaimer that I faced during the years when I worked as a game designer. We must agree on one more rule as a game developers. And for rule creation, you must follow just very simple 2 sentences. First of all, players deserve respect, clarity, and agency. And the rules that you're creating must be fair, readable, and must be empowering. You know, very strong words, right? But how to work with that, how to actually create that? For that, we need to, learn some more things, right? All right. I already mentioned, I will explain how I'm differing the rules and the mechanics. And since I already mentioned that I'm working on the game called Sea Fight, let's take a very abstract example. Rules will define for us what player can do and what cannot do, while the mechanics define how you can play out. One of the slightest and probably the simplest example that can be, you as a pirate in Sea Fight has the ship, right? And you have a lot of equipment. You have the ammunition, you have the crew, you have, sails, whatever. And you need to empower your ship. But if we're talking about the rules, we're not talking about the game today, right? All right. Yes, let's continue. All right. So the rule will be that you must select the ammunition before firing. We have plenty of ammunition that, firing with the lights, with poison and whatever. But the rule will be that if you want to damage someone, you need to select the ammunition, right? And of course, on your pirate ship, there must be the cannons, right? And each cannon can fire only once per reload cycle, right? Sounds simple, right? So player should understand clearly what they need to do. How many cannons I can place, how I can improve it. But for that, you need explain players the mechanics. On the slide you see another example, not about the cannons, but about the ammunition. As you can see here, it's plenty of ammunition and it's all not everything, because it's an old game, right? Player must understand how, what strategy they can use to choose the right type of the ammunition for different play and for different event, for example, right? And the goal of the player must be to, upgrade the ship to maximize the stats. So to sum up, again, rules, what player can do, cannot do, and mechanics, how you can do or cannot do something, right? But we need to talk about something more, right? So let's move. Okay, I have an idea for the game, right? Whatever, some, crazy idea in the middle of the night. And in the morning, I'm waking up and thinking, okay, I need to identify, before I will meet with my team, the rule set, a basic one. So first of all, what I need to explain to my team, for the players, for example, later on, what the game is about. So I'm setting up the objective and the context. So where am I? What am I, right? As a player inside this magic circle. Then I'm explaining the setup, how you need to prepare for the game, how to prepare for the game. In my talk, I'm using the examples from the live game or the new games, or based on the experience with working with different teams, right? So I'm not talking about the board games, but you can actually take an example on setup step, which is how to prepare the game. So you need to give to each player some amount of cards, of some different type of cards, right? So you actually explaining what is a game about, and you explain how to prepare the game and how to prepare to the game, and then you need to explain what players do on each turn, step by step. So, okay, I have in my hands a lot of cards. What I need to do with that? And I'm throwing it away, or I'm giving it to someone, or I need to know something else. So you explaining what is the turn in your game, right? And how many turns you can go, what the time limit, whatever. Then, as soon as you break down your rule set as clear as possible, right? It can be, a bullet list and a few pages, whatever, for now, for the first iteration. And then you explaining the edge cases. So in case that some of the rule will align with another one, you need to clarify how to resolve it, right? Because otherwise, players will start to identify the rules by themselves, which we don't want to do. And finally, win or lose conditions. So how your game ends. Does it have an end? Of course, it should have an end, right? And how you can determine the winner for the game. Or the winner is easier to identify because others will be losers. Okay. I identified for you the steps, the simple steps, how you can, identify your rule set, how to write the rule. But of course, there are some classifications that you can follow if you want to make a breakdown of your rule set for the team or for your players in a more clear or structured way, right? So, and for you to structure your GDD, for example, or the concept document that you're working on. Here you see the types of the rules. For example, some constitutive rules. There can be the mathematical or logical rules that you need to follow or, that you're placing in the game system. There can be the operational rules, which is instructs players that you need to discover during the play. Implicit rules, variable rules, and emergent rules. You see the definitions on the slide, but I must assure you that you can decide on yourself, do you want to have this type of the rule set in your document or not? But I must say that some of the rules can have the same, can be placed in the same category, for example, right? But it's up to you how you're defining the game. If I'm talking about the next classification, it may look simpler a little bit. It's called the rules hierarchy approach, which is the global rules. You're starting from the base, from the ground, which means I apply to all the players the next set of the rules, right? And no matter where the players are located, what the level they have, or status. For example, I'm, again, a pirate, right? No matter what level I have, no matter what status I have, or where am I have one ship, right? What I will do later, it depends on the local rules, which means that you identifying rules that apply in some special context, right? So in one zone of the game, these rules will be applied. During one event, for example, you will have a special buffs or debuffs on the game. Or when you're, switching between the characters, you will have one abilities or another one. And the last one, like on the top, as I mentioned, situational rules. It's a conditional or exception-based rules, right? So if two players starting the duel, what will be the, the results of it? And how you can identify who is the winner or who is the loser, depending on the context, right? So it was another approach. But if we're talking about, in general, another, unwritten rule that you need to follow, you need to make sure that you're creating, yes, a limited space, because we talked previously about the circle, right? The magic circle. It has a limit. But for the player, you need to make sure that there will be as much strategies as it's possible, right? Rather than a limit choice. Because if there will be, first of all, there can be two situations, or you will create, so, I don't know, a small game or whatever, and there will be just a limited amount of, I don't know, replayability. Yes, player will spend a few days on your game or something like that, and they will get bored because there is not a lot of things I can do, right, inside of the game. So you need to make sure as a game designer, or your team needs to make sure that players can spend as much as possible in this magic circle that you are creating, right? No matter what type of game is it. Is it the board game, or it is the computer game, or it's a solo game and you're just dealing with one player. So you need to create a replayability there. Okay. Okay, Kitty, we need to go to the next slide right now. So I made an introduction for you about what a ruleset is and what actually is kind of strategies you can follow, right? Or at least some bullet points that may be useful for you. I hope so. But now we will move to the next actually part of our presentation, or next part of my talk, and it will be about the rule creation scenarios. Depending on what game designer you are, depending on your team, right, depending on what stage your game is, you can deal with the different scenarios. I will, highlight a lot of the questions, right, and I will leave during my talk and in the end of the talk a lot of open questions that you will need to deal by yourself, because it's your project and you need to know, what exactly you need to do, and you need to answer to your own questions by yourself. I just can give you the direction, and by asking more questions, right, for you, that may be helpful. What I mean, we will try to answering the next three questions, which is, are you changing the rules for the existing game, right? So, for example, you have a game that you work for years, and then something you see during years, the rules, somehow broken, right? And it doesn't work anymore for the new players or whatever. So we need to find out what you can do. Another scenario, are you creating new rules for the existing game? The thing is that games that are on the market for years must provide new experience to the player, because of the competitiveness on the market right now, right? And you need to make sure that your experience will be renewed from time to time. And I'm not talking right now about the events, right? Events can be defined in the already existed rule set. But we will talk about more implementation of new rules inside of the existing game. And the third one, which may sound the most easiest because you don't have any limitations from the first point or from the second point, it will be, are you creating rules for the new game? Which sounds as simple as possible, but has its own strategies. Okay? Let's start from the first question, right, that I raised. You need to change the rules in the existing game. I don't like this comparison, but you can compare yourself when you deal with such of the problem, like you're a doctor, right? And your game is a patient, and you need to find the right symptom, right? And who is loudly saying about the symptoms? Our players, or their behaviors in the game, right? So, for example, you see the different, cases where you understand that some of your rules doesn't work anymore. And there is, I didn't put it into the order how bad or, how difficult the situation here. So the thing is that you can find the solution for almost all of these problems, right? There is some like breakdown that I will show you on the next slide, right? On the next slide. But we need to talk briefly about what you see here. So the thing is, depending on what is wrong with the game, players can say like, okay, I know there is a rule inside the game, but I can, you know, ignore it. That means that your rules doesn't make sense anymore, right? Or something is implemented in the wrong way or something like that, right? So you're asking to each question, why this happening in my game? What changed? What caused to this, you know, to this problem? For example, let's take, I don't know, the fourth thing. The rule conflicts with the new content. I don't know, let's take, again, abstract example, RPG game. And you have the rule, which is when you're trapped, you cannot take the damage, right? And then another game designer, super insightful, providing, hey, let's have the content expansion and let's have the frozen effect on the players. And now you need to think about the scenario. The player is trapped. So we know the rule that, I don't know, it cannot take any damage. But another game designer implemented the rule of the frozen debuff, which caused the damage. And now the question is that you need to answer. We can talk about this in the question and answers section. What will happen? So does these rules work together? How you will answer to this question? Are the players still get the damage because it's frozen, or there will not be damage because it's trapped? So here is an example how the rule conflicts can appear, right? And of course, let's take, I don't know, the last one, the negative data trends. The thing is, when you trying to change the rules in existing game, you can, I don't know, see the negative trend, which means the daily users dropped down, right? Or you starting to receive the negative reviews of Steam. That something is wrong with your game and something you need to change the rule because something started to get broken. So, okay, now we talk with our patient, with our players, and we need somehow to treat you know, we somehow need to treat it. How we can treat it. Of course, I will not give you the proper answer because there are so many things that can go wrong in the game, right? But what you can do, so as a doctor game designer, for example, right? So you need to identify the problem. What is wrong with my rule? Is it my rule in the game unbalanced? Is it confusing? Or is broken everything? So what you can change, this is a very dangerous step, by the way. What is the scale of the change you can do? Are you somehow adjusting the rule, I don't know, changing the condition, or you're doing the complete redesign? Why I'm telling that this is a very dangerous step? Because you have a lot of the players that you know, I don't know, that playing your games already for a long time. And recently, you're giving the update where you're changing the rule. And players are asking, it's the same game that I played yesterday, or what is going on? I hate this game, goodbye. Believe me, I saw these players. No, that's really happening, that even the slight change can bring much more problems. So on the second step, you need to, if you're introducing something to the player in the existing game, and you're trying to change something, try to not to, you know, try to do it as slight as possible. Introduce it as slight as possible, right? To not make the things worse. Of course, now, because our players, like, I don't know, very harmed because you changed the rule, you need to explain to them why you changed this rule, why that actually this change happened, right? And of course, it's again about the players. You minimize the disruption. And you need to provide, I don't know, some more content, or I don't know, some rewards as well that will help them to get used to the new changes, right? And of course, my talk is about the roadmap, perhaps, right? So I gave very short, I don't know, not the steps that you need, the diagram that you can follow. As a doctors, right? You're detecting, you're diagnosing, then you're revising, communicating with the players, voila, you're absorbing what the disaster will be next, right? What will happen next? Okay, now we will go to the creating new rules for the existing game. It's kind of simpler, right? But on the other hand, it's more dangerous because it can break the game, right? Or can bring more players, or you will lose a lot of players, right? The thing is, with the live games, it's easier a little bit comparing to the solo game, right? Because player, get used to some kind of the gameplay, and if you're changing the rule afterwards in the, the offline game, it will be very difficult to explain the reasoning about it. So we will talk about the creating new rules for the existing, live game. But I hope that you will find for your game the application of these steps if you are working not on the live service game, right? So, first of all, if you are, for example, the game designer that recently joined the game, or the team who's working with the game for some time, you need to make sure that you're understanding the game internal logic, right? And if you're very insightful game designer and you want to bring a new fresh ideas, let's talk, you're doing a farming game, right? So you know that there is a farmer that it can plant, he or she can plant some vegetables, and then another game designer step in. Hey, what about our farmer can fly? Let's put him some wings, and now it can fly and absorb the garden on top. I mean, doesn't make any sense. Do you want actually to have this ability to your farmer? It's a very abstract example, right? And now, the next step, you need to clarify the purpose of the rule. So, what this problem will solve. Okay, my farmer need to fly. Why? Is it some, dangerous around? Are there zombies that trying to steal the vegetables, whatever? So you need to define, actually, to answer to your team why you're solving this. Why you're solving this specific problem. Is it the guide behavior, or you unlock the new strategies that the farmer now can teleport, from one garden to another one, or, there will be the, again, flying mechanic, I don't know why. But anyway, so you need to provide your team, and for yourself, of course, the reason why you're doing this. So you're doing the self-verification. Actually, do you need this rule or not? The second one, again, you see, I'm talking a lot about you need to take care about the players, and you need to be very accurate with them, because they are coming to you and spending your life and your money on your game with some expectations. And if they find the weak spot, and they finding that the rules that you defined for them breaking their expectations, at least you can have it's a refund on Steam, right? Or you can have the negative review, whatever. And you need to make sure, if you're introducing something new for your game, you need to make sure that they understand the game, and it's, again, if they don't get it, you need to make sure that they are well educated. We will talk about how other team members can help you with that, but it will be a little bit later. So next one will be the test rule interactions. This is actually kind of rephrasing the example that I gave to you about the trapping and frozen the character, right? So you need to make sure as a game designer that you know everything about your game, and when you introducing something new, it will not break the existing rule. Okay. And the last one, it's introducing with framing and feedback. Again, everything you need to explain to the player with the reasoning, why and how they will now enjoy the new rule and whatever. And I actually worked with with this approach when introducing the new rule set for the one of the upcoming event for the game. And the thing is that first, before creating the new rules, right, you need to make sure this step is not here, of course, but you need to make sure that all of the existing rule set makes sense and already working before you bring in something new to your player, right? Because I know everyone is creative, yada yada, but you need to make sure that everything that already existed is working. And then you can introduce something new. And how they can apply this new rule set to make them happy, I don't know. So to sum up, you define the new rule, you justify it, align with everything that is already in the game, and then you test it and reinforce. Before we jump to the last question of this section of the presentation, let's take a look on the next more questions, of course. Rules validation, right? Just few more questions for you as for the game designers or the game developers. You need to ask yourself whenever you're defining the rule set, does this rule fit within the game's logic? Does this rule fair for all players, or it's creating, I don't know, you know, the term of paywall, for example. Is it creating something which giving the players not fair conditions, and now you're creating the classes inside the game, right? Can players understand it? Because if they don't understand the rule, they will not play it. Can the game engine properly enforce it? This is about the level of the creativity of the game designer and you know, the suffering of the developers and the suffering of the project manager with the deadlines, right? Because it's very hard to work with some game designers because everyone is creative. So now the simplest one probably before we are iterating on the game, it's creating rules for the new game. Here you have the freedom, right? You already heard from me about some of these points, right? But I will slightly repeat everything. So you define what you can do and what you cannot do, right? Simple. Next, you need to be ready, which is also important for the game designers, that in early development, there is a thing called kill your darlings. And you need to be ready that the rules that you're defining not working, and you need to start over. And these iterations can be as much as is needed until you're happy and you saying, hey, I created the unique game that will bring millions of money to me and my family and my friends, and I will be, I don't know, I will be happy. And now the next point is kind of covering the previous one, that you need to test from scratch that the balance between the type of the players and so on. And again, do not go very crazy with the rule set that you are defining. Remember this example that I gave, or create in your head your example without farmer that can fly, I don't know, or can dive, I don't know, whatever, or can do the fire underwater, I don't know. Your game rules need to match with the fantasy. So if in your game you can do the fire underwater, it's your game, all right. But if it was the real life simulation, where your sim can, I don't know, go to the swimming pool and then do the camp inside the swimming pool, some of the players can ask the questions. I don't know if it makes sense or it doesn't make sense. So my advice, just to match the fantasy that you define by yourself. And the second one may sound for you obvious. I'm telling a lot of obvious things today, but it's very important to mention when you reach the stage when you're super happy with the rules, but now you need to document everything, because after that your team will go to read your document, and you better prepare for the questions from them, because the developers, for example, it's another kind of people that can create so many good questions for your rule set that will help you iterate it. But still, you need to document everything as a game designer, because if something is not documented and your rules inside your head, and then your game is launched, and then you're reaching your developer and say, hey, my farmer cannot fly. Why? And it wasn't documented, so how I can go with that, I don't know. So your farmer cannot fly anymore. I don't know. It wasn't in the GDD. Whatever, you can create your example. I'm just keep saying that everything needs to be documented and documented clearly, because it's the first stage when you created the rule. Now you need to document it clearly, right? We already talked about how you can do that, how you can, what approaches you can use. I will not read this last sentence, but I think you get that you need to define the rule, you need to test it, you need to refine it, then you need to theme check, and then document and repeat, of course, right? How much time and how many iterations you need. This is one of my favorite things during the new game creation. Actually, I really enjoyed this approach, and I really wish and hope that whenever you're defining and whenever you're playing the game, you're organizing the play tests with your team, organizing the play test with a closed group of the people. And again, more questions for you, right? My suggestion is, for example, you created the demo of your game, right? And you can try the approach that you are not giving players the rule set, and they are just, observing the game. You're not explaining anything. You're just standing next to the player and looks how he or she is enjoying the game, right? And if he or she is stuck, you're just explaining, like you guys doing in the Indie Boost station, right? Which is amazing, by the way. And you need to make sure, are your players using the rules how you intended? Because some of the players doesn't expect, I'm sorry for this stupid example again, I didn't expect that your farmer can fly, but why? How I can use that? I don't know. Maybe you don't need this rule anymore because I'm just enjoying the planting vegetables, whatever. And your players can give you a lot of insights about the rules that you created, or that what they hated. So they can give you a very nice list of the advantages and the disadvantages. And also, there can be the case that you and your team missed some point, and in the middle of the game it doesn't make any sense because you need to adjust some numbers, conditions, or you need to introduce a new rule which will solve everything, right? And you need to make sure that the reason of your playtest is test the rule set that you want to introduce on whatever stage your project is, and you need to make sure that everything works with the core game experience. All right. Yes, another thing which covers in the three scenarios that I already mentioned, this is the edge cases scenario. Sometimes, and you see the examples, by the way, it will be simpler to follow these points and these questions, right? What happens when a rule contradicts another one? Again, this is my example, but previously I used the freezing thing. But here is a poison, whatever. Here is the example of the contradiction between each rules. Another question will be, what is intended to be a player behavior, right? And how player can break it. Very nice example will be, you're developing a survival game, and players will lose some health if they stay in cold areas. You as a game designer, for example, intended that players need to seek for a shelter, build some fire, and then wear the warm gear. But actual behavior, because, for example, it wasn't documented, developer introduced everything, yes, you will, lose some health, whatever, but in an actual behavior, player will open and pause the menu, will go to make some tea, and then resume the game, and there will not be much damage, because they will take a pause, I don't know, in the game, and then we'll just proceed with, I don't know, some more gameplay fun time. But you didn't, as a game designer, you didn't expect that. So, for example, you can find a solution how to avoid, I don't know, pause the game or whatever. And the third one are these exceptions for this rule. that you can jump while carrying the objects, and then you're introducing the event with the mountains. And you have the quest to bring some item to another, I don't know, another NPC. And you cannot solve this because you're in mountains. So the thing is that you need to make sure that whenever on what stage your game is, you're creating new stuff and it does not contradict with what you already have. Oh, there's some time left. And actually that's the most, I don't know, exciting stuff which is not truth related, directly, but it's important to make sure that you, as a team member, make sure that your team understands what you're actually doing and what you're defining, right? I will be super quick with that. As a product owner, for example, let's start from the game designer, all right? You define the rules. They're simple, clear, engaging, whatever, they're amazing. So you ensure that your new rules do not break game balance, whatever. So everything that I defined during these 45 minutes, everything works out. You're taking your GDD, you're giving it to the product owner, and he reads everything. And he sees like, okay, does this rule set aligns with the business goals? Amazing. Your product owner approves everything and he says, okay, let's implement it. And you need to collaborate with other designers and community managers to make sure that all the potential impact will be covered. By the way, a small disclaimer, you can use the same approach for the game mechanics, right? But we are talking about the rules today, right? For the developer, it's my, favorite member of the team because no one will give you the clearest feedback than a game developer because their job is translating the rule set that you defined into the code logic. Because without them, it will not work how you define that. So better have, my suggestion from my experience, have the verification of your rule set and the breakdown with your developer because they can give you the feedback that, all right, it's not clear here, 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 and here. So please fix it because otherwise it will not work. And they are the gurus of the existing infrastructure or existing engine that you're using, and they will make sure that are they well integrated? Are they, if it's even necessary. The community manager will provide, based on your GDD and based on your rule set, the clear explanations for the player, so will they understand everything. And this is the team member who will help you with monitoring the player feedback and will ensure that everything is super duper transparent and accessible. And of course, few more staff, few more important people in the team, like a game producer, or it can be the project manager, and they will make sure that everything is on its place. QA tester will try to break your rules, of course, because it's their job to do, to find the bugs or some, unintended interactions. To avoid the situation that I explained to you where the rules doesn't work, right? And the data analyst, which will help you to identify how to track the rule changes and how players are happy or unhappy about it. Oh, we are close to conclusions. So as a conclusion, okay, I could, wrap up all my presentation to this slide, right? But it will be interesting to provide more, ideas and breakdowns for you. But to sum up, you're coming up with the idea, you're providing the clear definition, you are trying to implement it so you, your team, and your players can play it. You are testing it on playtest or whatever. You adapt it to the game, and then you can repeat. I cannot leave and close this talk without recommendation of some books. And I was inspired for some of the information that I provided for you today by the rule book, The Building Blocks of Games, which very nice breakdowns with much more examples of the types of the rules, so I highly recommend to read it. There is a podcast based on this book as well. And the second one, this is the set of the and some philosophical stuff that other game designers write about the games and the rule creations and this complicated world of game development. All right. Thank you for your listening. Thank you for staying with me for this hour. I hope you enjoyed. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, thank you so much for such a cool speech. Yeah, and we already have questions. Cool.
You can ask, by the way, in Ukrainian, and I will translate whatever. So feel free.
Okay, thank you for your presentation. And I wanted to ask you whether the game designer has to know about all the possible strategies, or maybe the player can come up with the new ones, and then you can test your balance based on the player feedback.
Oh, that's a very good question. Thank you. I think it's possible until it will not break the rule set, it will not break the balance. And it also depends actually on what type of their findings is. If they're starting to farm the huge amount of the currency, then you're in trouble, right? And you need to fix it as much as possible. But if they find some, new strategy which kind of following what you implemented, then you need to thank this player and give him some in-game reward. So yes, I think that's possible. But as a game designer, you need to be very, very, into the details. And as much strategies you will define, then the better. I will close this because it's kissing you so many times. So I will. Okay. Yes. Next question.
How to estimate amount of rules that we need for the game, or how to not create too much rules?
That's also a very good question. It really depends on how long your game will be, right? And first of all, to complete, and first of all, your average player, you need to actually identify your the example how player will spend the play session in the game. For example, player will spend 3 hours in the game, right? And what he can do. So you need to define the abstract example what player can do in the game without going to the rules right now, right? And then, depending on that, you're defining the possible actions that player can do, and then you're actually defining the amount of rules. So in the beginning, it can be not many rules. But when you're polishing and when you're iterating, there of course can be more. And when the game is, on the soft launch, for example, there will be even more feedback. Start small, and then you can grow up with a much more rule set. But be, again, careful with, first of all, spend some time on the core gameplay and the core rule set. Actually, it doesn't take much time whenever you have a clear idea and whenever you have a clear expectation from your game. So I hope it answered your question.
Yep. Thanks for the lecture. My question about rule connections and contradictions. Maybe you have some tips and tricks how to track all of it. Just like create a giant spreadsheet or embrace testing.
Yes, that's also a good question. I thought about someone's page. I thought about to put a few slides and spend some time to introducing you a Boolean logic and discrete math stuff, but I thought that we don't want to do that in the morning. But what you can do, you can use the diagrams, actually, the graph, approach, and try to build the schemes based on the player's action again, and see the possible income and outcome. But your example is actually brilliant, because with having the spreadsheet, you can use the Boolean logic, which is true or false, for example. And we actually use that in during one of our game jams, and that actually worked. But nothing is compared to the play sessions, because player will try to break it. I don't know. Yes, but you actually answered already to your question. Spreadsheet and the graph, building the graph and diagrams. So yes, that's actually the good tips already to follow. Not at all.
Okay, we have one more here.
Okay.
So thank you for your lecture. How do you see the interaction between a narrative designer and a game rule developer?
Oh, that's an amazing question, because I wanted to place the narrative designer inside this, team perspective, because it's amazing. Because your narrative designer can provide the quest NPC who will guide the player. We could go with a different topic with the tutorial, where you're creating their character, which will lead you during the main rule set. So actually, it's a first point, right? So your narrative designer can provide you the character and the right moment where to introduce and how to introduce in the style of the speech of the game, the rule set that you defined. The second question, where you can work together, during the story, you can expand the rule set that player is dealing with, right? And in the beginning, for example, it's a one set of the rules, and then narrative designers, created a disaster. I don't know. I adore narrative designers, but later on, so it can be the disaster in the game, and then someone needs to explain to the player what is happening. So actually, it's a very good point where the narrative designer collaborating with the game designer, with the rule creator, and identifying where during the story is the perfect time to, put some rule explanation there. Especially, it's simpler to do in the casual games for the mobile, but when we are talking about the horror games, it's really depends how you want to explain it. You can do with, with some, another NPC who will guide you and will explain you the rule, or it can be, the note that you can find in the dark wood, with some text. For example, you can run, you can hide. Enjoy. So, yes, it's a very good point and a very good question, actually. So there is 2 points, actually, during the tutorial, explaining the rule set and finding the points where and what specifically you're explaining to the player. No. Thank you for your questions. They are very great, and they are actually completing what we discussed.
Yeah, thank you so much for such a cool speech, especially this collaboration part. It's so important in the team. Thank you so much. We have a really short, a few minutes break just to set up everything for the next speaker, and see you in a few minutes. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.